How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to The Big Thing. It's Thursday. What an episode we have here today for you. We're going to discuss, there's been talk of Gambit, there's been talk of Blade doing their own movies now. Are they going to do it? Will Marvel do it? And speaking of Blade for the MCU, it's not even listed on the 2025 list anymore. Bob Iger, they had this call and it's not even listed. So what does that mean? Is it over and done with, and should it be Dunsky? But the meat of this episode, if you guys have been watching Shogun, I finally watched it because I knew this interview was coming up. I finally finished it. And it is time for us to talk to one of the stars of that show, Nestor Carbonell. And if you don't know Nestor, where you been? Dark Knight, Morning Show, Lost, the list goes on and on and on. And we talk to him today, myself and Roxy Stryer. So I'm excited for that one. I'm excited for you guys to see it. Getting a lot of new interviews here. We're meeting a bunch of new people. So get on board. Hit that subscribe button. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. We're excited, man. It's me and Roxy. It's The Big Thing. Where's Brett? You figure it out. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. 'Tis The Big Thing. And it's Thursday. What an episode we have here today. And I'm glad that I'm able to have this episode with my good friend, Roxy Stryer. Hello, Roxanne.
What's up?
How are
Hey,
you?
Kristian.
Are you
How
excited?
Are
you excited for today?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Nestor.
It's going to be a good one. I'm so
It's
pumped.
like so weird to be such a fangirl of every guest that we're bringing on, but we're bringing on people I love. Like,
I know.
Nestor is so Lost is one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time.
He
ever.
just keeps getting great role after great role, right? He's got Dark Knight.
Absolutely. The Dark
Everything.
Knight is my favorite DC movie ever. The TDK trilogy is my favorite comic book ever, trilogy ever. I told you Shogun's my favorite movie of the year.
It's your favorite show of the year.
Sorry, my favorite Shogun is my favorite show of the year.
Right, get it
and
right.
I told you that Morning Show every year I come on here and give it as my top 10. I like ride for that show. So the whole thing is just crazy because he's in everything that I love.
Well, when they look, I've been getting pitched some good people lately, and when they said, "Do you guys want to talk to Nestor?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I told you, you were like, "Hell yeah!" You made sure that you were available for that one, and I'm glad that you were because we're gonna have a good conversation with him for sure. But before we get to it, there's news out there, Roxy. There's tons of news, and the two big stories. And the first one I got to get to, and there's gonna be spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. At this point, if you're watching this show, you should have watched the movie already. If not, fast forward to later on because the first story is all about what's out there in the news anyway. So the big cameo happened in the film, and it wasn't even a cameo. These are roles. Jennifer Garner returned as Elektra. Channing Tatum returned as not returned. I guess debuted as Gambit. And
not a movie, it's a show.
That's right.
It didn't return.
That's right. Wesley Snipes returned as Blade. So with the success of the movie, and the movie easily going to cross $1 billion very soon, I wouldn't even be surprised by the time that this airs if it's crossed $1 billion. Ryan Reynolds has been very active on Twitter and saying that not only should Blade get a R-rated Logan-esque film, that Channing Tatum should have his own Gambit movie, this standalone film. Now, no mention of Elektra having her own movie, but these two in particular. Roxy, you've seen the movie. Is this a good decision to try to get Ryan Reynolds to say, hey, these two should have their own movies?
So I have some questions for you, Kristian.
Go ahead.
I didn't see Blade until last year for Real Rejects. I did a watch along. I had never seen any of the Blade movies. And I was like, oh, wow, these are awesome. So I don't know anything really about Blade. Once I saw this movie, Deadpool Wolverine, and he was there, I was so excited because I'm part of the fandom now. But when we came out, I heard that there was a big deal because Ryan Reynolds and like that there had been drama prior to
they made a joke about it in the movie.
So I heard the joke. I was like, huh? And then I heard that Wesley and Ryan maybe weren't friendly or fans of each other. What can you tell? Like, what's the actual tea before I even give my thoughts on Ryan going hard in the paint for these two?
Well, it depends, because if you would have asked me this 2 months ago, I would have told you it's famous that they didn't get along. They didn't really like each other. They haven't. They
But
don't.
over what? Did anything come out?
That I guess Wesley was kind of like the star of it. Didn't like Ryan. They had a back and forth. They didn't get along. They just did different personalities, right? Who
Okay.
knows? That's what everybody thought the story was for years, because that was even the rumor when the rumor started to be like, well, there's going to be a Blade in this movie, and everybody thought it was going to be Sticky Fingers from the TV show. That was the major rumor, because they said there's no chance that Wesley Snipes is going to show up because Wesley Snipes hates this dude, and he even played to it. But the reason why now, and whether it's just PR, Wesley Snipes was in an interview and said, "Well, that was the rumor that we hated each other, and it wasn't true. We didn't even talk a lot, but we didn't hate each other at all." Ryan texted me, and I said, let's do it." And so he's like, "I don't know how it's going to work." He said, "But I trusted him, and it worked." So I don't know what the real story is.
Yeah, it's just interesting now because maybe there was some bad blood or maybe there wasn't. But now Ryan seems to especially be going hard for this. He Instagrammed out, said, "There's no Fox Marvel Universe or MCU without Blade first creating a market. He is Marvel Daddy. Please share for a Logan-like send-off." Which is like, and then did a whole scroll post of him and the two of them together.
Right.
And I
So
was
like he's
like,
giving him
wow.
he's giving him love. He's giving, and he's not wrong in where most people, when you bring up what started the superhero craze, right? You could start and say, I always say, not superhero craze, but gave respect to, would be the Richard Donner Superman 1, Superman 2.
Mhm.
I mean, even the tagline was, "You'll believe a man could fly," which he did. 1 and 2. The 3 and 4 kind of tainted that legacy a little bit. Donner wasn't part of that. But then 1989 happens, and Tim Burton's Batman comes out. And that movie changes the game also. And like, okay, great. This is going to be this is a big one. This is changing the game. And then the second one, I don't love, but people did. It didn't really taint the legacy. But then Warner Brothers didn't like how dark it was going. Goes the Joel Schumacher route. Kind of just makes it seem like these movies are just for children. Nobody takes them seriously anymore, right? So, and that was the case for superhero movies for quite a while in the mainstream until 1998, I believe it was, when the first Blade came out. Because people
Mhm.
always give credit to the X-Men, which didn't come out until 2000. But it was Blade, and it was this rated R Marvel film that Blade was part of. The Wesley Snipes did. It was the first one, and it was phenomenal. I remember watching that movie, and everyone was people were dressing up as Wesley Snipes for Halloween. So
Yes.
I understand it. I mean,
And it holds up. It's such a vibe. It
yeah,
creates an
yeah,
entire like mood. And he does such a great job in it. And I get completely why people love Blade. That doesn't necessarily mean that the best thing for Blade is to have him come back. And prior to watching Deadpool and Wolverine, I would have thought, no, I don't think that that's what's best. But then in Deadpool Wolverine, I was like, wait, he Wesley like more than still has it. I want to see more of this. And now I kind of feel where the people are coming from.
yeah. But here's the issue, and this is where, because that mindset I agree with, right? But let's start with Channing Tatum and Gambit first, and then
Okay, so
we'll
no, I feel the opposite about
okay,
Gambit
but
and Channing Tatum.
because
It wasn't,
well,
yeah.
real quick, because I want to, because I'll jump back to the reason why I want to put a hold on this is because it's going to transition also into the story of what's happening with the new Blade, right? So that
Okay.
it
Yeah.
could combine both of them. So hold that for everybody. Channing Tatum, the story behind this was that for years they were trying to get, this is during the height of the comic movie boom. Marvel is kicking us. Every movie's making $1 billion, and Channing Tatum was up for this movie, wanted to get it, and there was a rumor that the movie was supposed to cost $200 million to make. I talk about it all the time. I'll never forget it. Schnepp lost his mind. Couldn't believe that they were going to spend $200 million on a Gambit movie. He thought it was the stupidest thing. It didn't happen, never happened, and it continued to not happen. And they even brought a joke upon it, right? So Ryan Reynolds is pushing the Channing Tatum Gambit side because arguably funniest part of the whole movie, one of the best scenes in the whole movie. I love what Channing Tatum did, but Roxy, I think I know your answer already. You don't think that this should happen.
This is the problem with people who like something and don't realize that you can like something and not give it a whole new life. Like, the clear whole point of this was that this character that he created for this movie only works here. You can't understand him. You can't hear him. Nobody knows what the F he's talking about. He's a joke in this movie. And the fact that Channing Tatum was willing to do that, so much credit to Channing Tatum for realizing I am the joke. And I'm gonna play that up. I'm gonna have no ego attached to it, and I'm gonna show how ridiculous this character would have been. That's what the whole point was. So for them people to be like, see, everybody loved him. And it's like, yeah, in this as the comic relief, not as a endorsement for a Gambit movie. What the F?
Now, I agree with you. That I don't think that this should be a movie with Channing Tatum. But here's the argument you could make against it if you wanted to. You could say, well, yes, remember, this is a variant of the character. We are going to do a Gambit movie where you can understand what he's saying. You can see the cool stuff he's doing with the cards. He's not going to be a goof, and they're going to give him an actual movie. It just happens to be a variant inside of it. My argument against that is the same thing that we'll get into with Blade. Marvel is not at the they're coming off a win right now with the box office, no doubt. They need to get Captain America to be a box office win. They need Thunderbolts to be a win. They need Fantastic Four to be a win. If they get all of those to be a win and they get that going, then they shoot into Avengers 1 and 2. They don't have the luxury of doing what DC did. James Gunn smartly said, you know what? We're going to have our DCU universe. We're going to have our DC universe. And then we're going to have these side things, these Elseworlds projects. We're going to do some things that connect to the universe. And it might confuse some people here and there, but whatever. But we have the Batman universe. We got the Joker. We have these other things that we have going. I don't know where Peacemaker lies, although now he said it's part of the universe. But there's Elseworld stuff that if you wanted to do something in a standalone thing that doesn't connect, you can. Marvel doesn't have that. They have it with Sony and I get, with what Sony does, and even that is connected somewhat.
I would push back a little bit on that. Like, what would you call the Werewolf by Night
Still
movie
connected.
that we watched?
It's still connected. It's supposed to connect through the monster side of it. They were gonna make things happen. It was more of a standalone piece, but it's still connected inside the MCU.
But also, we are going with Fantastic Four. We're doing different time periods. We're doing different universes.
But they're connected too. They're connected too.
You're using the word connected differently than how I use connected.
Yeah, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the storyline is all connected, right? Where if you're doing a Blade movie, where I guess the first thing logistically, where do you put that Blade, or where would you put that Channing Tatum movie? Where would you put that Blade movie? Where do you put those movies?
Do you mean
right
what
now?
date, what release date, or do you mean which Earth?
No. Right now, as far as releasing it, you're an executive, and I say to you, okay, well, when are we going to release that movie? Because we have these 3 movies coming out leading up to our Avengers movies in 2026. We don't have anything fit to where all these movies do play into how we get to the Avengers. We don't know how this one does because it's connected. This is what I'm saying. It's connected to the universe. We just do a random standalone Blade, like, oh, and here's Blade, like Logan, because that's what Ryan Reynolds said. He said, let's do a Logan type thing. But now that it's connected, it's like, well, does that connect to the MCU? They have pigeonholed themselves by connecting everything in this TV universe.
I guess that's you assuming that was the Blade from the universe that we pulled him. Like, I don't feel the same way you do about how you're describing all of that.
Okay, because I mean, so you think
like I don't even know that X-23 was our X-23.
They said
we don't know.
They said it was. They said that she had said in an interview that she was the same one from the Logan movie.
But he's not the Wolverine from that.
I know
movie.
it's all over the place. But nonetheless,
we're already going all over the place. The point is that you absolutely could do a standalone because you could just say different Earth, different time.
Yeah,
different Earth, different time.
It's confusing to people, Roxy. Like if you say that to you and I, we'll be able to figure it out. But the average person,
DC's confusing. Then they're both confusing.
I know, but I'm just saying if it's a matter of I don't know. I don't think doing a Blade. And the other side of it is this: you think they're going to do a $60 million, $70 million Logan-esque budget? No, Wesley Snipes is going to want to do a $200 million Blade movie. And
I agree with you on half the things and then disagree on half. Like,
yeah,
I'm with you. I think we're both on the same page about Gambit, where we don't think that that should be a movie right now. I'm not
you
saying
got to
never, and I'm
establish
not
him.
saying
You got to establish him in the X-Men as somebody else.
right.
Yeah.
Just it's
Yeah,
not work
they
with
did him
Channing
well.
Tatum.
They did him well in X-Men 97. They did him great in X-Men 97.
As Channing Tatum in the next 5 years, do I want a Gambit movie? I don't. I don't think we need that. But do I think that there is room for a Blade movie? Absolutely. In a few years, do I think that there could be room for a Blade movie? I really do. I think that there has been room for a long time. I'm curious why it's so hard for them to figure
Oh, wait,
out,
wait,
like,
wait.
what
So we're saying different things here. We're saying different things. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a Blade movie. I'm
you're
saying
saying.
that
There shouldn't be a Blade
I'm s-
Logan style movie
I'm
with
saying
Wesley?
right now, as much as I would love to see a Wesley Snipes Logan-esque movie, I think it's too confusing for Marvel to do because of what you just said. With the Marvel with the actual Blade movie, which should be coming up because that is connected to the Werewolf by Night, the Eternals, like all that stuff. The way he's in, I mean, his voice is in the post-credit scene for that scene. I think it. Don't start pushing it out until you know where he's coming and where he's doing and what the story is.
Wait, who's coming?
Blade, until you know
Oh.
what Blade is, because like let's just jump into that story here, because check this out. This is something I'm reading over a comic book movie. Blade, not listed among Marvel's 2025 release in Disney CEO Bob Iger's Q3 fiscal year 24 earnings statement. So last week, Marvel Studios put an updated film slate through 2027, and surprisingly, Blade was still listed as a 2025 release. But is that still the case? Mark Julian writes, just last week, Marvel Studios adjusted its upcoming release schedule, with the company removing an untitled July 24th, 2026 film from its slate. But surprisingly, Blade, the film that seemed to have the most uncertainty surrounded it, remained unchanged. Yet today, in Disney's CEO Bob Iger's Q3 FY24 earnings statement, the top exec pointed to a number of upcoming Marvel projects as a reason for investors to feel bullish about the company's upcoming fiscal performance, as he listed every 2025 Marvel project except for one. A joint statement from Iger and Disney Chief Financial Officer Hugh Johnson reads, looking at our upcoming theatrical slate, we're excited to bring audiences a number of titles that expand our popular franchises and bring these stories to life in an imaginative new way. Later in the year, we have the highly anticipated release of Moana 2, as well as Mufasa the Lion King. The statement continues. In 2025, our theatrical slate remains just as robust. Captain America, Brave New World, Thunderbolts, The Fantastic Four, First Steps, Zootopia 2, and Avatar 3. In 2026, we look forward to Avengers, Doomsday, a new Star Wars movie featuring The Mandalorian and Grogu, and Toy Story 5, the first Toy Story movie since 2019. As you can see, every 2025 release from the MCU is mentioned by Iger and Johnson except Blade. The reboot of the superhero vampire film, originated by Wesley Snipes, was announced back in 2019 at San Diego Comic-Con when Mahershala Ali walked on stage at the end of the studio hall's presentation. Since then, the project has lost 2 directors, undergone 4 rewrites of the script. Ali is still attached to star in the lead role, but Delroy Lindo and Aaron Pierre have since departed. Mia Goth is still set to appear and reportedly play Lilith, an ancient vampire who needs the blood of the Daywalker for some nefarious purpose, but instead of targeting Blade, she's targeting his daughter. Early drafts of the film had the project taking place in the 1920s, but multiple rewrites now have the pick taking place in present day. Blade was originally envisioned as Phase 5, but due to our aforementioned script issues and the 2023 WGA and SAG strike, the film was pushed to November 25th. The film was pushed to November 7th, 2025, making it a Phase 6 release. So, in other related news, Snipes' Blade returns in Deadpool and Wolverine and states there's only been one Blade and there's ever going to be one Blade. Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool then knowingly looks into the camera, seemingly making note of the film's difficult production. Since then, Reynolds has gone on to campaign that Snipes' Blade deserves his own Logan-like send-off. So, there is a lot to relate into that story that we just talked about, Rox, right? Because I agree with you. I think that there should be a new telling of Blade, and it would be interesting to see the MCU do it and tackle it. It doesn't seem like they know how to crack it.
I don't know what to make of all this, Kristian, because Blade should be pretty easy to do, but there were all these jokes in this, like there is only one Blade ever, and
Yeah.
this is the only Blade. And it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what I think they should do at this point. I think that Wesley is awesome. I think that Mahershala is awesome. I think that Blade could really be done in the next few years and be awesome. but they don't seem to know how to do it. How many directors have they gone through? Like, there's
Ton.
been a lot of people.
Ton.
People leaving the project constantly, moving time periods, all of that. Sometimes I do feel like, not to get all woo woo, but when something's not working, sometimes you need to take a step back.
This is where I stand with it, because I think Mahershala Ali is just such a amazing talent. I've been saying this, and I think that this is where we are. If it's not coming, 2025 was never going to happen. It didn't seem like it was going to happen. Not being listed on 2026, albeit telling, also smart. If you don't have it cracked right now, don't say it's coming out in 2026, so everybody can say, oh, you said it was coming out in 26. It's not. They don't have it cracked. They have no idea when they're going to put it out. If that is the case, I think that they should say to Mahershala Ali, listen, we really want you to be part of Marvel. What role do you want? What do you want to do? We have so many things that we want you to do. What do you want to do that we know is coming out? Do that. And then he does that. And then if you wanted to, going back on what I was saying earlier, and I'm actually not going back, but fixing the problem maybe, what I was saying, you'd have to get this Wesley Snipes Blade movie done before the next two Avengers movies. And if it's a small enough budget, you probably could do it. But if you were going to, in the same way what they're doing with Daredevil, where they were going to reboot the whole thing, make it something different, make it match the MCU and not related to the Netflix series, they said, the hell with that. Let's just make it the Netflix series, it's the next season, but it's going to be on Disney Plus. And it was a smart move. At least you think it is. Maybe they do the same thing with Blade. And they go, okay, we couldn't crack it with Mahershala. We want him in the family, but Blade, and people love seeing Wesley back. We can bring him back, give him a Logan-like movie. Don't kill him off, because we can have him show up in Secret Wars. We'll sign him for a contract to put him in the Avengers. And then once the multiverse is over, it's it. It's over. It's done with. Maybe they can do it that way.
But do you want that?
Depends
because I know you think that might still be confusing for people.
Well, no, I think it'd be confusing.
Like, Wesley Snipes is 62, so
right.
We kind of got to get a move on.
Sure, in the same way, and that was one of my biggest arguments with Mahershala Ali not doing, waiting too long. I mean, he's significantly younger than Wesley Snipes. He's only 50 years old, or whatever he is. But still, if you're going to connect him to be part of doing a Wesley Snipes one-off Blade movie, if you're going to do it, you can sign him up, get him to do it. Clearly, he's still got the chops that he can do it, and that's it. With Mahershala Ali, I would assume they're going to want to lock him down and do stuff for a while. That's why they announced it in 2019. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was.
But what other role could you really see? I mean, Mahershala could do anything, but what other role could you really see him dying to have? Like, Blade's the it guy role.
Sure. I mean, but there might be other roles that you and I, we're not the comic aficionados that like the Winston and Coy are. They probably have 75 different characters that could be rich and full for him. I don't know. I can't come up with one.
That's kind of the point, though, right? Like, do you think that Mahershala is a comic book aficionado? You would think that he. What'd you say?
I don't know.
I don't know either, but you would think that he would probably realize that Blade is like general public knows.
Of course. I mean, that's why he stuck around so long. Of course. Yeah. But if it keeps falling apart, how long do you wait? How many jobs did people pass off because they thought they were going to be shooting it, or they thought they were going to be locked into something?
I don't know.
You know
I don't know
if
any, but maybe a lot.
Right. Who knows? But it's getting messy. But we both agree the Channing Tatum movie shouldn't happen. Gambit should happen. Gambit should appear in the new X-Men movie when it comes out. And then if you like Gambit, this is what I keep saying to people, and people keep arguing with me about it. If they make an X-Men movie, and they make these movies, and if they make the first X-Men movie, and then everybody gets really popular, and let's say you're like, oh, I love who the actor they got for Gambit. I'd love to see a Gambit standalone movie. Do a Gambit standalone movie, and then it comes back in, and then they all show up for X-Men 2. Do a standalone Storm movie after X-Men. You do the X-Men movie first. You set everybody up. Who did we love? And whoever they love, give them their standalone movies and come back to X-Men 2.
I'm so with you, and it's so funny because it's the exact opposite of what I want for DC.
Yeah.
Where DC was like, let's do Justice League. And it was like, whoa, don't start there. Let's do the standalones and build to that. But for X-Men, it's like, let's start there and then see who we like and then go to the standalones.
Because X-Men's a team. That's what they are. They're a team. And you want to.
Justice League's a team, but they don't have the same individual, like, you wanted to see all of the individuals first, and then you want to see the team form. X-Men, I'm fine coming in. Teams formed.
Right.
Then let's see who we
Yeah,
like.
and then do standalone movies, because I think the future of the MCU should just be the Fantastic Four and X-Men for the next after Avengers and that's it. Just focus on those movies. You don't need to do all these. Well, let's go. There's some random comic book on Kevin Feige's shelf that he wants to bring to light now because he thinks everyone's going to love it. It's like, no, focus on the X-Men. You have so much material there that you can do. So I'm curious. All right, so what do you think? Go ahead and put your comments in there. Should Blade have his own movie? Should Wesley Snipes have his own movie? Are they gonna? What do you think about them not having that on the 2026 slate? Should Channing Tatum have his own Gambit movie? What say you? Put your comments in there. Tell me what you think. Okay, before we move on to our interview here, I want to tell you guys real quick about our friends over at both Magic Spoon and Liquid IV. Here you go. I have been getting really nice comments from people lately and noticing that I've been losing weight and that I've been in shape and doing all these things. And one of the reasons why is because I've been eating better, been paying attention. And one of those things I've been doing is Magic Spoon. And every time I talk about Magic Spoon, I get people right afterwards saying, I just tried it. And then that same person will follow up and go, and I love it. People love Magic Spoon because I loved eating cereal as a kid. But as an adult, you can't do it because of all the sugar, and most of the cereals don't give me the protein that I need. And I found Magic Spoon, which is really great. And it tastes very similar to my childhood favorites, but it doesn't have all the sugar and it's got a ton of protein. And that's my snack at night. Every serving of Magic Spoon cereal, it's got 13 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar, and 4 grams of net carbs, so you can feel good about what you're eating. So the most popular flavors are fruity and cocoa, and there's so many more. I mix the cocoa and the peanut butter personally, but they also have treats. Magic Spoon has brand new treats. They're crispy, they're crunchy, and they're an easy way to get 11 grams of protein on the go. For the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. It's delicious. My friend Dan says, it's really delicious, Kristian. I got to try this Magic Spoon. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/bigthing. Or look for Magic Spoon in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/bigthing for $5 off. That's Magic Spoon. Hold on to the dream. I was having a barbecue with the family, and I was going to go and went to pick up some games for the kids to play, and I was picking up cornhole. And while I was at the sports store getting it, I kept seeing Liquid IV. And more, I'm so excited that people are learning about Liquid IV because I've known about them now for a bit since they've been on the show. It's the summer. The summer is thick right now, and your favorite summer treat could be giving you extraordinary hydration. Liquid IV has refreshing summer flavors like popsicle firecracker, it's got rainbow sherbet. It hits the spot when you need transformative, hydrating relief all summer long. So I really do enjoy it. It's been nice to have it. I moved, and I live in a very humid area now, and it's great to have Liquid IV. It really is, and I love this popsicle one, so I'm showing it right now. So what you want to do is they have so many different flavors too that makes it just really, really fresh. And you can choose from their line of sugar-free flavors. They have raspberry melon, they have white peach, they have green grape. It's great. You can go to the website and you can find all of it. It keeps your wellness rituals fresh and it keeps you motivated, it keeps you hydrated. So what you want to do is you want to tear, pour, live more. One stick, 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. It's powered by LIV Hydroscience, which is an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. It's got 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. So indulge in hydration this summer with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV, but you got to use liquidiv.com and use the code BIGTHING at checkout. You get 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today. Use that promo code BIGTHING at liquidiv.com. All right, thank you to our friends over at Liquid IV and Magic Spoon. You know how much I love both of them. I've been talking about them, and I'm excited. So just click that link, man. Click that link. Obviously, I want you to get yourself something. I want you to go and find something that you like. But when you click that link, that helps us too. It says like, oh, those people are listening and they're going over. Just browse around. That helps. Browse around. Take a look. All right, Roxy, you ready to do this?
Like, so ready, Kristian. This is going to be the best.
I can't wait. So let's do it. Without any further ado, to-do, boo-boo.
For sure.
Is that good? Is that a good one? No.
Great transition.
I thought it was a wonderful.
So good. Boo-boo.
I thought it was solid, Boo Boo. So let's get into it. It is Nestor Carbonell. It is an interview we're looking forward to for a while here. Here you go. All right. So as you heard Roxy and myself talking about our next guest, we're so excited to talk to him, from whether it's Lost, whether it is The Dark Knight, whether it is The Morning Show, and of course, he got his first Emmy nomination for Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series for Shogun, which just blew everybody away. And we're so excited to be able to speak to our guest today, and that is Nestor Carbonell. Nestor, how are you, sir?
I'm great, and thank you. That was very kind of you. Thank you for having me, guys, and for your very kind words. I'm speechless, but yes, very grateful for all of those opportunities that you mentioned to me. And I know you guys have been in this business for a bit. You know how tough it is. So anytime we get to work in any capacity, and certainly on this level, is a gift.
Well, that's what I was going to start with, in the fact that you've been doing this for a bit, and you have. And I listened to your interview recently with Michael Rosenbaum, and the journey that you took. And what I thought was just fascinating is that, and I think that what a lot of people need to hear, and this isn't just with acting, this isn't just with this profession, this is just in life. I think it's the will to keep going, the will to believe in yourself, the will that it's gonna happen, because you're a Harvard educated gentleman. And then when you were in school, did you know that you said, okay, I'm going to do this, and did you give yourself a time limit? You just said, no, I'm just going to go until I feel satisfied?
That's a great question. I sort of stumbled into this profession. I didn't ever think that I was going to get into it. I thought I was going to, pursue a more traditional career, maybe go into law like my father did, or some form of business. And I took an elective, in college that, there was only one at the time. I believe that there's many more now offered at Harvard, but at the time there was only one elective. And I read this book called Meisner on Acting in that class. And that was that book. That was the very book that made me want to say, I think that I want to pursue this more. I want to understand this more, because the way Meisner breaks down acting is all about being present and in the moment and really living truthfully under these imaginary circumstances. And it's not really pretending, not the way, it's not his sort of, his MO or his take on acting. It's really trying to live truthfully. And I thought, I was so taken by that. And I was especially taken by that when I had my proverbial first moment in acting class, where I felt like I was kind of lost for a moment, because I was connected with the actor. And it's like a drug. It hit me like a drug. And I was like, I got to have more of that. And I want to study how that happened, why it happened. And I want to be able to really, lose myself in a scene, if I can, and, and continue to learn how to do that. So I finished college only to go back to go to start acting school after I graduated, because they didn't really offer anything else at Harvard at the time. And so I studied at Playhouse West for about a year here in LA. And then I studied later on with Bill Alderson at his studio, Meisner Studio. But that's how I started, and to your other point about stick-to-itiveness and giving myself a time limit, is interesting. I did finish with the idea that, well, God forbid the acting doesn't work out. I'll have a degree, and maybe I'll just sort of figure something else out. And there's certainly plenty of moments where I was like, this is not working at all. My first 3 years out here were pretty rough. I was working here and there, and I had more advantages than most because I already had an agent. So that already is a battle in and of itself. But coming in close, second or third on a film or a TV show, that was certainly more often than not. So about 3 years in, there are moments there where I was like, this is not working out, and I got to start thinking about something else. And until I kind of strangely willed it to happen by figuring out sort of the sitcom world.
Yeah.
That's how I broke it.
What is the perception of, you've got immigrant parents, they work their butts off, you work your butt off, you go to Harvard, you tell your parents, actually, I'm going to go be an actor now. What happens after that?
It's a great question, Roxy. Listen, there was no one in my family had ever, gone into this business. So it was new to all of us. And, God bless my parents, because, I have kids now. We have kids. We have 2 boys who, one's 22, the other one's 19. And, one's just finished college, one's about to go to college. Both of them are aspiring musicians. And, wow. And I have no leg to stand on to say to them, no, you can't do that.
Right.
But to my, because come on, my wife was also an actress. But to my parents' credit, they, and you're absolutely right, Roxy, having, been exiles, Cuban exiles, having lost everything they had in Cuba, starting from scratch. My mother didn't even have a high school education. My father did have an education, but really starting with what they had in their pockets. To build the life that they did, only for their oldest son to go, I don't think I'm doing the traditional thing.
Right.
And for them to be able to pivot. Sorry, that's our furry daughter. Anyway, so yeah, for them to pivot and support me I'll never forget that. It was extraordinary. And yeah, the initial conversation was a little shocking, I'm sure, but only to be expected. But they were right behind me as soon as they saw my commitment.
It's amazing how important it really is. So important. Obviously people can do it without the support, but with the support, it's monumental. I feel the same way with my father. Was always the same way for me when he said, I told him the things we wanted to do. He said, look, if you believe in it and you believe in yourself and that's what you want to do, commit to it, do everything that you want to do. But like you're the one that's going to ultimately make yourself happy. It's like you can take a job and things that you're not going to be happy with, but you got to commit to it, and you can't do it half-assed, and you got to make sure that you're doing it the right way. And not everybody has those types of parents. Not everybody has this. People, it's that traditional thing. So the fact that your parents could listen to you, understand, give it a shot, believe in you, and that says a lot about you as a person, though, too. Where they said we trust him. We it might take a little bit for them to get to that place, but they did it, and they were right.
Thank you, and I'm so happy you had a similar experience. Did that happen for you as well, Roxy, or was that?
Yeah, I can't say a bad word about. I have the greatest parents of all time, so supportive. Hoping to be able to make them proud the way that you have made your parents proud, because geez, what a career.
I'm sure you have, and I'm sure you are, and that's terrific. And you're right. You're both right. That not everyone gets that support, and it is pretty enormous, to have that, particularly because you're swimming upstream. I don't know how it was for both of you when you started out. But trying to, I heard another actor say it's almost like you have to use your elbows to make room in this town. You have to kind of, and you're absolutely right. Believe in yourself and believe that you have something to offer, the community that, maybe is not seen in a certain way, or, so. And then the other thing is, I know Denzel, I've seen so many reels on Denzel Washington talking about this, but it's consistency and discipline.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difference between a hope and a dream. It's and realizing a dream is having that discipline, that daily discipline, doing something towards your goal every day and being consistent about it. And even if it's somewhat peripheral, but as long as it's somewhat associated to your goal, that is sort of the differentiator, in my mind.
Do you know that I've watched you in everything? I'm like just a diehard fan. I can't possibly express. I watch 120 shows a year.
She watches Shogun
so much. Is by far and away my favorite show of this year. I'm obsessed with the morning show. I was a diehard Lost girl, so I've really truly seen you in absolutely everything, which means I've seen a lot of your interviews as well. And Kristian and I have been doing this a long time. We've interviewed every A-list celebrity out there. I cannot believe you are the only person in the interviews that you do that I've seen, and just now, who asks the interviewers questions
and cares.
No way. No,
I've never seen that.
I really, because I am curious to see. Look, we're all in this business together, and it is sort of it's an odd thing, what we do to a certain extent, particularly people outside of it. I'm always fascinated by everybody else's journey. I'm curious to see how everyone navigates this, because it's tricky and it's changing, it has changed and evolved. And I know both of you, I was reading up on you, you both, were started in social media, or in, sort of in this world. Was it 15 years ago?
Something like that? It's been a bit.
It's extraordinary. Yeah. It's amazing. And as I'm sure obviously you've experienced it, the changes within the social media landscape have changed dramatically in 15 years. I started 15 years before that, there was any social media.
Right.
So I'm always curious to see, on your end of it, how you guys are navigating things too. So I mean, I'm selfishly fascinated too.
Well, I was going to say that too. I'm sure as for what you do, and I mean, I think asking questions to everybody you meet and learning new personalities probably puts more in the toolbox too. It's like where you can. What happens one day? It's like, hey, we want you to play. There's a guy out there's a role out there of a podcaster who's been out there for a long time doing stuff and moved over. And you've talked to people and you've had those conversations. Like, it makes sense to ask questions.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. There's no question that certainly as an actor, it helps to learn as much as you can. But I think just as an individual, I'm just genuinely curious because I we're all in this, body and in this, not to get too existential, in this lifetime, and we're trying to navigate, our own existential sort of, being, and I always want to see how other people do that, and how you tackle your day. How do you tackle your fears? How do you deal with your struggles? That applies to everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm always fascinated by how people do it differently, and whether it's different cultures, different everything, and how they go about it. To me, that's always it's always interesting.
Yeah, I love that conversation because it's also one of these things where, as you mentioned, I like to get, especially when this is also when it comes to a long form and being able to have these longer conversations with somebody. It's not a junket. You don't sit there for 3 minutes and it's like one thing, and the poor interviewer has like a thing that someone said, hey, read this, and you absolutely, what was it like working on Shogun? How do you feel about being nominated? And then it's over, and you didn't get a chance to really have that conversation and that back and forth. Because I'd like to go into the deeper things too. Of course, I want to talk to you about Shogun. Of course, I want to talk to you about Lost, and we'll get there. But I also like the same thing as someone who does this. I want to learn more about you. I like this reading up about you, listening to the interviews that you did. I thought it was fascinating with your journey and not giving up. Rodney Dangerfield is one of my comedy idols, and the idea that he's always the one that I've used of don't give up. Look at what happened to him when he was around the same age, and now we can jump to Shogun and the fact that look at this accomplishment of being nominated for an Emmy and doing and you've done incredible work, but what you do in this show, it's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and I'm so happy for you. But can you talk a little bit about hearing about the nomination and going, holy shit, it happened?
Well, thank you so much, Kristian. I appreciate that. It's so wild. Yes, I was blown away. I've been at this for a long time now. I've been at this since professionally since I graduated college, since '92, end of '92. Or really committed end of '92 is when I moved out here to LA and to do it full time. And the irony is that my first job on primetime was as a guest star on Law and Order. Mm. So to be nominated in this category, 2 years later, is especially meaningful to me because, it is for any actor that you guys have spoken to who's done guest work, and I've done, quite a bit of it. It's its own sort of animal. It's you kind of typically coming into a moving train, having to hop on and sort of trying to simulate and also trying to add something to the world as well. But also not disrupt it in a way that it's jarring, so you have to, so this particular award is especially meaningful to me because of that reasons, and I had the advantage in this particular, in Shogun, that my character is introduced in the pilot. So in that respect, there was no moving train, as part of that train already. But no, it was still, a dream, obviously a dream job in every respect. And you guys know this when you guys stumble on, some element of work that you go, oh, wow, this is especially meaningful to me, and it doesn't happen all the time, but everyone, when you do, you recognize it. Mm-hmm. and you say, wow, this was a moment that I won't forget, that I'll cherish. And it was an experience. And that was certainly one for me where, you're in this world that, Justin Marks, Rachel Kondo, the writers, and obviously based on James Clavell's book, that they and the writers created, that John Landgraf and everyone at FX, really got behind, to the point where they created a world that as an actor you walk on set and you're already in the world. There was green screen work, but there wasn't that much. There literally was an incredible set around you that you could escape into, and then you have phenomenal actors to work off of. So, so just on that level alone, it was extraordinary. And then the amount of prep that we got, I've never had that kind of prep, which is just a gift to an actor to work with a Japanese coach. Yukari helped me with my Japanese. I had Tony Alcantara helped me with my Castilian accent. I had sword fighting lessons. I didn't even get to fight.
Right.
I had special Japanese. These are Japanese canoes that I had lessons in that. I had lessons in everything, in social training and how to bow. So I could do it, in a bad way to everyone around me. So you have all of that, and then you recognize what a gift all of that is. And then on top of that, like I said, the talent around you, the enormous and just beautiful talent around you to work off. So you pinch yourself, so to get recognized for that in a nomination it's especially meaningful.
Yeah. Where were you when you found out?
Oh, about the nomination? I was home. It was early, and then I was trying to live stream, or do the thing, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, oh, I missed it, and then I was like, oh, well, it's okay, or maybe it's just, if it didn't happen. But then I get a text from my agent and my manager are like, dude, you got nominated. So I found out through text, but it was really, but it was really sweet. I mean, it was, it's incredible. I mean, I'm so flattered, the job alone was already the gift, and then to be recognized by my peers is just, it's really special.
Was there one that you did before that you thought it was coming and it didn't come, or do you try not to think about that?
I try not to go there. I've been on a few shows that have had, like on Lost, a lot of people nominated, other people won,
morning show.
What morning show for sure. Bates Motel, and then maybe it's interesting when I first started out, you have this sort of idea of, of the awards and this and that. And I don't know how you guys feel about that, but when I started out, it was, I remember, it's just before the internet, it was like you were glued to the TV to watch the Oscars. Certainly all the actors were, the Emmys, and we still are. I'm still fascinated, and it's still great. But the more I got into just the work of it, and just and finding the work, that became the goal more than anything. It wasn't geared towards necessarily winning a particular award, because I think that could be death to creativity. It's really about the work. It's about being truthful and trying in some small way to contribute to the story and enlightening people perhaps about the human condition in some way. Ultimately that's what we're doing. If we're doing storytelling that's meaningful and impactful, is we're saying or asking, at the very least, raising questions about the human condition.
Running your time on Shogun, I think it's interesting that from watching the start of your career and hearing you talk about like even commercials you booked early and them saying like, oh, you really got to up the accent. Like, let's really hear your accent. And then there was kind of that chunk of your career where we didn't hear you with any kind of accent. I'm sure that felt exciting to be able to have your voice back. But then in Shogun, we kind of come full circle, where not only do you have to have an accent, but you have to learn a whole new other language as well. What has that been like for you? How do you feel about using your voice that way? And do you feel differently about putting on an accent now than you did when you started?
That's a great question, Roxy. It's interesting. And I've told this to other actors, and everyone's different. And you guys know how you broke into this business too. Everyone has sort of a unique experience. For me, it was, I was coming close, to certain roles when I first started out, and then but it's such a huge pool of actors. I go, how can I differentiate myself, or how can I narrow the market for myself? And I wasn't booking national American commercials, so I said, well, I speak Spanish, so maybe I can hit the Latino market. Doesn't pay as well, but I just need to start working, and sure enough, I was able to open up that world by. I was competing against maybe, 10 guys, as opposed to, hundreds, in that market. So I learned, well, if I can do that here, how can I do that on just mainstream acting? I go, well, I can do accents. Maybe I can do foreign characters, maybe I can break in that way. So, and again, I narrowed the market for myself in sitcoms, because I was like, well, maybe I was one of a handful of guys who'd come in from either who's Italian or Spanish or, whatever heritage it was. I really narrowed that market for myself, and that's how I broke into sitcom. But to your point, Roxy, you're right. After a while, I was like, well, now I'm just doing accents, and casting directors often would tell my agents, well, he has an accent, so we really can't see him for this part. And they're like, no, he doesn't. So then part of the challenge for me after Suddenly Susan doing 4 years of that with an accent was I got to do something completely different without an accent so that I can change perception. I got to murder that character. And then I was offered a show called The Tick, and that one, but it was, and I was like, oh no, did they want me to do an accent? And sure enough, they did. Yeah. But the character was Batmanuel. I mean, how do you say no to a character named Batmanuel? Yeah. So I was like, well, I'm definitely going to do this character. I don't care if he has an accent on it. And it was, I mean, again, I had the time of my life on that job, and that one only went, I think only did 10 episodes. But then after that, no, Roxy, to your point, I'd heard an interview with Eric McCormick about this very thing. And he says, you do a role on TV, and you're known for that role, and your job as an actor then is to murder that role so that you can change perception, do something completely different. And so I said, I love how he sort of couched it. I go, and so I just made a point of saying, no, I'm just going to try and do something without an accent. And coming now full circle to it is fantastic. Going back to doing it on Shogun is great, because now I actually had a real coach to work with, for one thing, to really try and nail this Castilian accent. Then working with a Japanese dialect coach, and trying to, make sense of what I'm saying in Japanese. And then being able to avail myself of their talents too on set, and saying it, particularly in Japanese, if I want to improvise, I want to throw a line to someone to hurry up and do this, how do I say that? Those things are, I love being able to do that. So it's full circle, but in the most amazing way.
Well, that's great all the way around, especially the fact that, as you mentioned, when you were starting out or you were working, people just thought that that's who you were with the accent. But by the time you get to Shogun and the established career that you've already had, they're like, well, we know what Nestor can do. If we need him to do it, he can do it. And you show up in there and you do that. But you mentioned Justin Marks. I had the pleasure of actually meeting Justin Marks and working with him for a brief second when I was working at Warner Brothers. And
that's great.
Yeah, we had a thing that we were kind of doing, and he's a phenomenal person. I really like Justin a lot, and he's super talented in everything that he's done, from Top Gun Maverick to this and everything. So I was reading a lot of stuff of what he had said, and this roller coaster of season 2 with Shogun. This roller coaster of, they're gonna do, we can't do it. There's nothing else that we'd be able to do. The books, it only goes to this one thing, and then it's like, well, FX is kind of knocking on the door, I guess, or other people, and it's like, hey, so have you hear anything about this, or you just kind of like us, same thing? What the hell's happened with season 2?
I'm sort of out of the loop on that in that regard. I haven't talked to, I emailed with Justin a little bit after the nomination. He was very sweet. He reached out to me, and we emailed back and forth. I congratulated him, obviously, on his tremendous, incredible work. I'm hoping to see him at the Emmys, and catch up with him. But I can only imagine that, because I think they picked it up for 2 seasons. Is that right?
Yeah. 2 and 3.
Yep.
3. So I can only imagine what that writer's room must be like, because you're absolutely right. I don't know where they're going to go with the story, and who knows. But I'm excited to see what he comes up with. What he and Rachel did was, and I'm sure you guys agree, was extraordinary. The way that they focused on sort of those power dynamics within the regions, those Japanese regions, and really exploring the chess match of what they did, and where you see, Toranaga, a hero, playing this grand master. How Justin crafted and Rachel, how they crafted this incredible sort of, it felt like the entire season felt like a chess match, and in the most beautiful way. Was extraordinary. So I can only wait to appreciate the following chess match, because I'm sure a lot of it will be about manipulation, and I imagine it will be the next 2 seasons.
You guys shot in 2001, which is quite a bit of time ago. Is the conversation on set when you're shooting, we know this is only 1 season? Is that how everybody felt?
I just assumed it was. I assumed it was because, the original miniseries was just a miniseries. And I figured, well, it's a book, and then there's no sequel to the book that really picks up where it leaves off. All the other books are sort of their own entities. So I just assumed, I truly just assumed it was a miniseries. And then, and I was hoping to do the last episode. There had been talk about me coming back for episode 10, but I think they couldn't figure all the elements out at the time. So I just loved and enjoyed the ride when I was on it. I will tell you this though, Roxy, I've never been a part of something, certainly in TV, as epic in scope, So we shot like at the tail end of COVID. It was post, shutdown is when things were starting to open up a bit, but we're in Vancouver and their laws are pretty stringent still at the time. So we were double masked, we were masked, or we had a shield, even outdoors. And it was a whole, and we were tested every day naturally, but on Wednesdays and Fridays, everyone was tested, everyone. And so I remember one Wednesday I walked in and I was like, well, what number am I today? And they're like, you're number 1,534.
Wow.
And that's
wow.
So, yeah, that's how massive, obviously they, every subcontractor had to come in and get tested. Anyone remotely affiliated had to get tested on those 2 days. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This many people are working on this production. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy how, as you were talking before, Nestor, with the change in the business overall, how crazy that is to even imagine that kind of scale would happen on television. Like in 20 years ago, you couldn't even imagine that. I mean, I remember when Rome came out on HBO and it was like, I think it was like $100 million for that show. And everyone was like, oh my God, they're breaking the budget here. And they were like ahead of their time in what they were doing. So, from your perspective, how different is it? And the opportunities, maybe, are there more opportunities, obviously, through doing something epic and cinematic like that? How do you think it's changed?
You're absolutely right, Kristian. I mean, it is, dramatically changed. I even remember with Lost as a pilot, that pilot alone was massive. And still, I just rewatched it not long ago because I took part in the documentary, the Lost documentary. And so I wanted to rewatch the pilot. It holds up. I mean, that thing it's J.J. Abrams, but it's also, even in terms of the special effects and how big it was like that was a big deal, certainly for network, massive for network. I still marvel at the amount of, money that goes into executing these epics. It is extremely. Game of Thrones, obviously, the other obvious one. I'm amazed by it. I mean, you see it obviously on the bigger features, on the, the tentpole features. And I certainly got a taste of that on Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. I mean, those are, they're massive budgets, but I'd never seen that. Certainly not when I started out in television, 30 years ago.
Sure.
It was unheard of. It's amazing. And I love that the streamers, that the studios are getting behind television in this way, because we're also getting to explore characters in a more profound way. We're getting 10 episodes as opposed to 2 hours, Right. So you're really getting to explore all of these characters in a deeper way. So I'm glad that much, that many resources have been shifted to television.
So I know you don't know, and even if you did, you probably couldn't tell us about season 2 and 3 for your character, but you know that you make it out, and also you're nominated for an Emmy. So I'm going to go ahead and say they would be absolute fools to not have you in both those seasons. If you are in Shogun season 2 and 3, what are you hoping for? What do you want to see from your character?
Well, thank you, Roxy. I appreciate that. Listen, I would love to be in as many episodes as they'll have me, because it's, obviously it's a role I just love and a show I love. What I love for the character to have, what I loved about the character is he's kind of like, in Othello, he's sort of the Iago character. He's this Machiavellian character who's just conniving. He's not as smooth an operator certainly not as Toranaga, he's not the grandmaster, chess player, but he's like the Central Park chess player, the guy who does the speed chess. He's sort of shrewd, and he's quick, and he's that kind of thing. And he's always looking for an angle. He's that kind of a chess player. So I want to see more of his moves. He has the rudders on Blackthorn, and then he's got Blackthorn to deliver to Toranaga. So he's always working an angle. I just want to see him. I want to see him get in more trouble, and have to fight his way out of trouble. Because this is a guy who is not afraid to insult everyone around him in any language, because he knows his worth. But I want him to push it to the point where, he has to question whether he's going to be safe or not. That I'd love to see that.
It's a great answer. I heard you mention something that I got to bring up because I'd be so mad at myself. My audience would be mad. We got to talk about working with Christopher Nolan. We got to talk about Dark Knight. Got to talk about Dark Knight Rises. So because that's coming off of, or right around, it's coming off of Lost. After Lost, so you had really, as I mentioned to you, I heard the journey, and you get this role on Lost, and it kind of reignites or kind of really pushes you in the forefront of your career. And tell me about getting the role in The Dark Knight, and then when you're getting this role, because and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your wife was involved in Batman in some way or another too. Am I wrong?
She voiced the character in the cartoon Ink.
Okay.
So she did voiceover work.
Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, we have some Batman in our family. She was Ink. I was Batmanuel. This you'll like maybe. I was really bad Batman when I was starting out here at a birthday party, and I remember. This is like one of those, one of the jobs that like a buddy of mine was doing. He was doing birthday parties, and I was like, "You're doing it?" He goes, "Yeah, they pay pretty well. They tip you well." And I go, "Okay, great. Maybe I should give it a crack." And you got to learn balloon animals and all this stuff. And I was horrible at that party, and I almost left in tears. And the kids made fun of my utility belt.
Man.
Anyway, it was a disaster. So I had to somehow redeem myself. If it wasn't Batmanuel, is hopefully to get on one of Chris Nolan's amazing movies. But the way that worked out is I auditioned for Chris. I'll tell you what happened. This is actually quite interesting. And hopefully this appeals to people outside of the business as well, in terms of, how things work, and how life can, give you curveballs and unexpected surprises. But I had done a movie called Smoking Aces.
Yeah.
And it hadn't been released, but it was a really interesting character that I had never played before. And so then I went on and I got Lost. And then while I was doing Lost, I had this audition come in, and it was for, Chris Nolan's movie. I had like one night to work on it. The next morning I was there reading for Chris and Emma, his wife and producer. And I thought it went okay. But I didn't know. And then I didn't hear anything. I said, well, it obviously didn't happen. And then I was in the jungle in Hawaii, in Oahu, shooting a scene with Michael Emerson. And I happened to have it was a flip phone at the time. I had my flip phone, and for whatever reason, I decided to look at it. And it was a call from my manager. And I go, I wonder what he wants. And he's like, hey, so they want to see tape on you for Chris Nolan's movie. This is like 3 months after I read. And then I go, really? I go, for what movie though? Because I figured they already shot it and whatever. Right. And he goes, the Batman movie, The Dark Knight. And then I go, really? Wow. I thought that was gone. He goes, no. So I said, well, why don't you see if we can get tape from Smoking Aces from Joe Carnahan, who directed it at Universal, because that's the most recent stuff. And so Joe Carnahan kindly was able to release those scenes to Chris Nolan. And the next day I got the offer. So it's just wild how things, can work out, and, and when in the most unexpected places.
Okay, you go to set, and I know that you said that there was this big speech, and it gets dropped to you the night before, but you had written, this is crazy, Kristian. Okay, you had written a speech because you didn't know that you were going to have to memorize the speech, so you wrote your own speech. I have to know what you wrote, because you ended up not performing that. They gave you the other speech that you performed, but you are sitting there, you write a speech, you learn this speech. What was it? What did you think you were going to say?
I thought I was just going to say something about policing and about, I forget what I wrote, but I tell you what I did do, Roxy, because I did this because I was in the first scene that they shot on The Dark Knight. It just so happened to be the way the schedule worked out that I was first up with Anthony Michael Hall. And it was just a scene that was going to play on a TV screen in a police station. But it starts out as an interview. He's interviewing the mayor about crime in Gotham and this and that. And there was nothing on the page. It was just like, there was like maybe one line or something that, he asked me, whatever. And then I was like, well, I've got to say something, even though it's just being seen. And there was no dialogue written. So I just talked to Anthony. I said, why don't you ask me a few questions? And I wrote my own answers about how he felt about policing, and how we needed more support. And, we were hamstrung, whatever it was. I don't know what I came up with, but I came up with stuff. So we just did this improv kind of, it was improvisational, this interview, and they used whatever they used. So I assumed when I got to my speech, when, the Joker was going to shoot me, there was literally on the script, in the script, there's only one or two lines. And I figured, oh, well, okay, I'll write something else about, policing and crime and this and that. And I wish I remembered, but I'm sure it was all of it, taking a hard line on crime and how we have to restore law and order, just basic talking points. I'm sure it was nothing riveting, but it was just, sort of like basic stuff on. And sure enough, you're absolutely right. I get, after shooting a scene, the one with the effigy that slams against the wall with, shooting that scene, I go back to the hotel at night, and you're right, I get this long speech, and I go, I just, I got this now. I got this tomorrow morning. This is crazy. And I do remember being up pretty late trying to, memorize this and forget what else I'd written. And then asking, God bless her, Maggie Gyllenhaal, to run lines or to see if I was even remotely close to the speech, the next day. And as we're making the walk up to the dais, to the podium, and she was so sweet. But yeah, it was frightening.
Yeah, but
did you know Maggie at all? You just felt comfortable. You were just like, hey, Maggie Gyllenhaal, can you help me?
Exactly. It's like, Maggie, you don't know me, but here's my little speech. Can you just make sure that I'm on book here? Because I want to try and be off book. I don't want to have to read this, So she's like, yep, you're good. No, she was great.
Solid team. I like it. And speaking to that too, and every time, we've had the pleasure of talking to people who've worked on that movie, and I have to ask, when it comes to the legendary performance, obviously, of Heath Ledger, did you know, like, when you're looking at that scene, you're watching him do his stuff, did you know you were watching something pretty special?
I did. And I'll tell you, because I didn't have much interaction with him, but I did have that scene where, I make Gordon the commissioner,
yep.
and Heath is in, is in the cage. And he did improvise that. I remember he improvised the clapping, and I go, wow, that's a genius choice. That is just so on point. I go, this guy's, he's in it. He's not performing. He's in this character. So that's, and even when I talked to him briefly, when I introduced myself and, I talked to him briefly, he was very nice, really polite, but I was like, I could tell he was like, oh, he's in a headspace. I'm going to leave him alone because he's there, and he's really there. I go, fantastic. And so, yeah, you could tell. I mean, you never know with these things how they work out. I remember, reading his role, thinking, yeah, this is a magical role. What he did with it was just, as we all know, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
There were rumors, obviously, for a long time that he was method on set, but you're saying when you introduced yourself, he was Heath in that moment?
Oh yeah, and he was lovely. He was sweet, and I know I think he was listening to quite a bit of music as well. But I think he was very much trying to stay within the bounds of that character as much as he could. Is my guess.
Yeah.
But no, he was lovely when we talked, and really, really sweet. And that's what everyone else who worked with him, had more of an experience with him than me. Yeah, that's what they all said. Yeah.
Legendary character, legendary actor, and legendary film. So I think that and then you get to you do the next one, and they kill you off. They get you.
I know. They blow me up. I was like, does it have to be? I know. You might have heard this in another. I don't know, but I do remember when they did blow me up, and they had one of these air cannons, to simulate something,
mm-hmm.
and they put a bit of, my hair was pretty solid at the time because it was. I think they put a little bit of a spray on it, and, so it wasn't moving much. So I remember Chris was like, why don't we put some stuff in the air cannon? So I was like, what are you going to put? And it was just like foam and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I do remember thinking, like, do we have to blow me up? And do we have to see any of that? Maybe he survives. He's like, no, this is it.
It's done for you. You're over. Yeah.
You got two.
Well, and you've worked with some, whether it's legendary directors, you've worked with some big, obviously other peers, and the cast in The Morning Crew is just, whoo. I mean, holy moly. And that goes back to what we were talking about with how things have changed today with streaming and because what that cast alone, talk to me a little bit about working with a cast of that size, or working with a cast of that magnitude also, and what's that like, when you come up there and working with, do you ever get nervous of like, how are these people going to be? Because I think, how are they going to be? Are they going to be, their ego is going to be too big? Are they going to be welcoming? Does that ever cross your mind?
I mean, I think that cuts across every industry, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine, first day on a job, first day in school, anything like that. But you're absolutely right. When you're talking about, these huge stars, all on ensemble, you wonder, how is this going to gel? Especially if you don't know them. I knew Jennifer a little bit before the show, just socially, a little bit socially. But I didn't really know anyone else in the cast at all. They're amazing. They're amazing. And my experience, certainly in television and film as well, but really in television when you're on a show, is that so the attitude is set from the top. And Reese and Jen have created an atmosphere where we're all free to try things, to experiment, to change things if we want, or suggest things. And so from day one, I always felt that freedom, which is amazing, and it's obviously much more conducive to creativity from every department. So, that's not always the case, on every show, because everyone works differently too. And, obviously different personalities. That could not be a more freeing set. It is an actor's dream to work on that show. Having said that, you're right. There's some big players there. You had Steve Carell, the first 2 seasons. John Hamm came in last season. Obviously, you have Mark Duplass and Billy Crudup. You have tremendous, great elite. You have great actors around you, but they're all actors. They're all there about the work, and it's all about trying to make it better, more credible, more authentic. So everyone's sort of working towards the same goal, and then the same thing goes for the crew. I mean, you have Mimi Leader as our producing director, who's an extraordinary director, along with all our other directors, and a phenomenal writing team. And this show was created by Carrie Aaron, who I worked with had the privilege of working with on Bates Motel, and now Charlotte Stout has taken over, and that both of them are extraordinary powerhouses.
It probably has the most star power of any show maybe we've ever seen, honestly, with some of the names you named, plus like Mindy Kaling. I mean, people pop in and out of that show like crazy. I think when people sit at home, they think about all of these people being friends on set. Are people eating lunch together? Like, is it just like a who's of Hollywood? How does it work?
That's a great question. Our schedules are so different. So like Marianne Cotillard is joined the season, as is Jeremy Irons. I've only met them through Zoom on table reads so far. Wow. I hope to meet them on set. I don't want to give away storylines or anything like that. But, it all depends on whose storyline you're in. It is a massive cast. So often, I'll shoot a season and I won't see certain actors because, obviously we're on different sets, shooting on different days. But I treasure those scenes, and we've had a number of them, like a gala scene where pretty much the entire cast is there, where these moments we have had. This is fun. This is like what you kind of live for as an actor, is like where you're all kind of like, all right, you set up the shot, now you got 20 minutes while they light, and so you're all hanging out and then just swapping stories. And those are moments that I really treasure, because you're getting to, hang out and have lunch and talk about everyone's, like we were talking about before, everyone's life experiences in the business, out of the business, kids, no kids, whatever it is. Those are the great moments. I mean, they don't happen every day, but like I said, on those big group scenes, I live for those. Those are great.
Well, the next time we talk, Nestor, and you wind up meeting Marion Cotillard, I want to hear about the stories you guys share about Dark Knight Rises, because I assume I know.
You're right. I did meet her. I met her at the makeup chair on Dark Knight Rises. I have to remind her of that. Yes. Yeah. We met briefly. She had to suffer through one of my speeches at the Wayne Manor, estate. But yeah, she was great.
That's awesome.
I wonder, because it is such a political show, I always wonder this when I'm watching political shows. And obviously you've spoken about, you come from a background family. I believe it was your great uncle who was just like an unbelievable hero in Cuba and was massacred because of it. You have such a political background yourself, and it's a political show. Are people's politics getting involved on set? Are people talking about their opinions on certain things? You guys cover women's right to choose. You covered COVID. You cover everything that's going on current day.
It's interesting. I'm not really. No, I mean, I think because we're actors, we're there for our characters. And as an actor, we're taught you have to be your character's best defense attorney. You have to defend, whether you believe his or her opinions on any given issue, social or political. This is your role. This is your job. And you truly have to invest in that. So the energy is spent on that. And not really on, no, I don't think anybody, I think people we're really there to honor the work, as much as we can. So we don't really get into anything like that. That would be epic, though.
Or not. Probably for the better.
It's true. Yeah, you would answer. I think you probably would have answered that previous question. Like, I don't want to deal with that person ever again after that conversation.
True. I mean, it's like, if you're not going to talk about that stuff with family,
No way.
it's like, you're certainly not going to bring it up at work. And
Nah.
no, I mean, no, I mean, and the show is, like you said, Roxy, it's so topical and political as it is, that all of those things are already out there anyway. But the challenge really is just to make bring your character to your character's perspective to that topic, and do it justice as best you can.
Yeah, and so you've worked on some great ensemble casts. Obviously, the one we just mentioned, obviously Shogun, which you're again, congratulations on the nomination, which is just so amazing. I'm so happy for you. But the other things that we made, as we were talking about, the first thing when I asked you that question earlier about it, were there roles that you thought, oh, maybe the first show that you actually brought up, it just in that conversation, was Lost, obviously, and the from the things that you had been, how it changed your career, and how. Now, what you heard on Michael Rosenbaum's show, from what you had said inside of that interview, was that it was a guest role. So you do the role, you go, okay, this is cool. I got a good spot. I love the show. My wife and I love the show. We had a kind of a who's gonna get it first. Whoever gets it first, we'll go out to dinner or whatever it might be, and you do, and you get it. But then it turns into this major role. So if you can talk about that a little bit, where that phone call of no, the guest, it's not a guest role, because that show always, I love that show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time, but it always confused me into like, they didn't have that mapped out already. They didn't have, like, Richard comes in and did they know Richard was coming back, or they just didn't know, or you did such a great job. They're like, yeah, let's bring him back.
Thank you. It's a great question. But to answer that, they did not have everything mapped out, and they were pretty open about that. Damon and Carlton, or Damon Lindelof, Carlton Cuser, the showrunners and writers, creators, they're very open about the fact that they knew where it was going to start, and they knew it was going to end on Jack's eye, open on his eye, close on his eye, and everything else was sort of movable parts, which was sort of freeing to them, in a sense, but they did map out every season thematically. So there was definitely a theme to each season, and that was cohesive. But I think there were definitely moving parts all along. And I think what they did is they went to what they felt was, responding. They responded to whatever they felt was working on their dailies, whatever, they came over. And I think they were intrigued. I imagine they were intrigued by the notion of Richard having some kind of a history with, the Dharma Initiative. And after the episode with Juliette Lewis, with Juliette, after he was introduced there, it was like, well, who is this kind of weird guy who's just killed her husband to recruit her to come on the island? Mm-hmm. What is what's that about? And how do we bring him back? If that was in the past, how does he sort of materialize? And I think it was just sort of I benefited from the fact that it was a very eerie and mysterious storyline. And there's no question about that part of that was certainly not me. It was just the fact that my character was shrouded in mystery, and it only became more of a mystery as we discovered that he didn't seem to age. Yeah. And then it was like that, at that point I thought, I think, maybe I might be here a little bit longer, because at some point they'll have to explain that, and so the more mystery he was shrouded in, the more I thought, I think I have a chance of living a little longer than I thought. And lo and behold, that's kind of what happened.
This is also a career where, like any career, you need to make a living and provide for your family, though. And when you're on a show, and right now you're like, how long am I here? I don't know how this is going. And you have to take other opportunities. Is that something that you just are like, okay, my team will deal with that? Or when you're on set, are you dropping hints like, make me a regular already? Come on, I'm here all the time.
It's a great point. I think typically, that's, your representatives, your agent, your manager, those are the things that they typically handle. But, and then you try and just focus on the work and do the best job you can. I think with Lost, it was a unique case because, like, Kristian, you both pointed out, they didn't necessarily know where it was going. And so, to their, in their defense, it's not like they were like, we can't make you a regular. Well, they can't, because they really genuinely didn't know where that character was going. They hadn't fully mapped it out. But once they started, seeing that people are responding to this character, then we can extend it and sort of as much as we can and see how we do as we go along. But with Lost, you're absolutely right, Roxy. It came to the point. There was one time where I was like, I gotta know. I have kids now in school. We got I've got to provide for the family. Pilot season's coming up. Do I do a pilot? I don't have a deal with Lost. I'm just I just show up when they call me. And so I did have to sort of roll the dice, and I did a pilot one year called Kane for CBS, and that's exactly what happened. We let ABC know, hey, listen, I'm going to do a pilot, but I won't do it if you give me a commitment. And they're like, we don't honestly know where it's going. And we said, fair enough, let's roll the dice. But I had to provide for the family, so I did that pilot, and then I remember doing that pilot, going back on Lost when they did call me. And then said, hey, they said, you did a pilot. I go, yeah, but it's about, about a Cuban American family in Palm Beach. And I remember one of the guys said, oh, wait a minute, is it about, no, that's not going to go. It's not going to get picked up, whatever it was, whatever the rationale was. And sure enough, it got picked up.
Oh, wow.
But I did say, please don't kill my character off. Okay, I want to come back. They're like, that won't get picked up. It got picked up. And then I do remember going to the TCAs and having to field questions from a number of reporters about like, what's going to happen? Because you didn't die on Lost, and you're doing 13 episodes of Kane. And then I go, look, in a perfect world, it's up to the powers that be, but I would love to be able to do both. And sure enough, I ended up doing 13 episodes of that show, and then not long after that, I had a deal with Lost.
Yeah, and I think that goes to just from speaking to you this last 50 minutes or so, is it's the attitude I think that you're bringing forward, the positivity and those types of things. I'm sure that all adds into it. It's like, look, I got to do what I have to do. I have to provide for my family, but I also want to work with you guys. You're open and honest. And it also, I think, though, goes back to what we said a little while ago with how different the business is because back then, that was one of the reasons I think it wasn't mapped out is because it was network television. And I think when you have that many episodes, you look at something like, look at the comparison, look at Shogun. Shogun knew exactly where it was going, knew it was going to be based off a book, put on this service where it's like, and even how FX has changed with putting stuff up into what you talked about before and how epic of a show that they could do, because FX is putting out quality stuff right now between this, the Bear. I mean, just quality stuff.
So good.
So good. And so what they're doing, and then you look at, they're going to give you a commitment, obviously, because they know what's happening in the story. So that's got to also, same question from before. It's got to be the change in the way that things work, because if Lost is made today, I bet you it's 10 episodes on a streaming platform, and they know exactly where your character's going.
You're absolutely right. There's no question that the game has changed. Network was different. I think they responded to often focus groups, how your character tested, that kind of thing.
Yep.
The other thing that did change was the advent of social media, was kind of starting really Twitter. All of that started with Lost, right around that time, and that definitely played into what characters came back, how social media was responding to each character. I think that certainly was a game changer for sure. I know that was the case also on Psych when I worked on Psych. That Twitter, I think, essentially was one of the things that they were really active on Twitter, and that helped establish a really strong fan base for them too. The social media did at the time. So yeah, things have certainly changed. Yeah.
As the game has changed, one of the things that we see now every day is a new prequel or sequel is announced. Do you think that there is room for more with Lost?
I hope so. I really do. I love. I mean, that world was so magical. I loved how they played with time. How they played with characters. I mean, you really got to. A full in-depth look at every character. I hope that there is room for that. I just don't know if there's the appetite for that for Damon and for Carlton. I hope there is, because I can only imagine. All the actors would be game for that. I would think, but I hope so. I hope so. They'd have to be convinced. I don't know. I don't know how you convince them to come back. Yeah. They have to go back. We have to go back.
We have to go back.
Perfect. Look at that. Perfect. And I think that, speaking of how you mentioned beforehand, when it was Lost or Batman or things that you kind of wanted to do and projects that you were interested in even before, you worked on them. Is there stuff out there now? and especially, and I guess like relating it into Shogun with the success that you've had on this show and the rightful praise that you've been getting for your work in this role. Have you been getting opportunities for other projects that you're like, oh, I don't know if I would have gotten that call 2 years ago, but I got it now, and I'm very interested in it?
Absolutely. There's a few things I could say and some I can't yet, but yeah, I've been very fortunate, to have had a few, a number of opportunities come my way, and now just trying to assess, how to navigate, which is a great problem to have, mind you, as we all know, in this business where it feels like feast or famine a lot of the time. So yeah, and I'm so grateful. Again, like you guys pointed out, we shot this 3 years ago,
Right.
and I remember loving that experience. I mean, it was just beyond words, the experience. And then, but I remember thinking, okay, well, I almost, I had to put it aside mentally because I had to focus on the present. And then for it to come back in the way that it has come back, and certainly get the reception is just has been extraordinary. So yeah, no, thank you, Kristian. To your point, it's definitely opened up doors. I'm so grateful for that. And to be honest with you, I'm grateful for any job I get, and I that goes for the smallest of jobs to the biggest of jobs, because what we get to do is special in the sense. I mean, we get to play pretend, we get to tell stories, hopefully that have an impact on people. And you can't take that for granted. I mean, it's a unique thing.
Yeah, and Roxy, I'll let you close it out with. I just want to do a follow up to that real quick, where similar to what you just said with Lost, when you were like, "Hey, listen, I need to figure out, am I on this thing or not? Because I got other opportunities." And now with these other opportunities, do you tell FX and do you tell them, "Hey, listen, are we doing Shogun season 2 or are we not?" Because I got Marvel knocking on the door, I got DC knocking on the door, I got Star Wars. I mean, what's the what do you say there?
I mean, I honestly, to me, my focus has always been just focus on the work.
Yeah.
Focus on things that I can have some control over, which is my creative output. And the other stuff is quite beyond my control. I mean, my representatives, they sort of weigh the options, and they present the options to me and my wife. We both make the decisions together, and because it affects our family naturally. But really the focus, all I can do is focus on trying to, execute the work that I have before me as much as I can. I leave that to smarter minds,
Fair enough.
You described it as feast or famine. I think that's a really good way to describe it. Recently, I thought that I booked a role.
Yeah.
I did book it. Then something happened where the director just didn't like my voice, and I had thought I had it. They didn't like my voice. I ended up getting the call that I didn't get it. And then I ended up listening to your interview where you were talking about having a job. You go to a table read, and then after the table read, you no longer had that job. And so that you feel like you are constant, you have to audition for the roles that you even already have booked, which is frustrating in the famine part. But is there anything that from that, like anything that you're really glad that you ultimately didn't end up booking because the universe or whatever ended up making way for the things that did work for you?
It's such a great question. And thank you for sharing that. I know it's painful to share those moments, believe me. And I know, if we all stick around in this business long enough, you're going to get your lumps, but I feel like that those lumps, as long as you allow them to affect you in a sense that say, okay, well, there's nothing I could have done about this X, Y, and Z, changing this person's opinion. But as long as you find some energy behind getting yourself back up from that experience to fight another day and say, okay, well, some of this is subjective. I may be so-and-so's cup of tea, but so-and-so really just doesn't like me. And maybe it's just a taste thing, whatever it is. You can't control that. You got to move on. And I think for me, the most grounding thing, even lately has been, focus on how we can all, we're all in this entertainment business together. If we can somehow explain something about the human condition, anything we do, whether it's, whether it's your amazing show, that you have right now, talking about issues that affect everyone, even beyond entertainment, naturally, or being part of a show or a film that will somehow illuminate someone about the human condition in some way, whether inspiring them or making look at a certain issue in a different way. Focus on that. Make that the focus. The other stuff is noise. The disappointments, it's all part of it. It's all part of the struggle, but the goal is to leave something behind that will help someone else, hopefully in the future, say, oh, wow, I never looked at life that way. Oh, I never looked at those problems that way. That's an interesting way to approach life. If that's the goal, I think that I feel like you kind of can't go wrong.
Wow. What a wonderful way to end the episode here with Nestor. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations again.
You guys are amazing. Thank you for this. This is I really appreciate this, and it's just wonderful. I love talking to you.
Well, we would love for you to come back. I know that you're
with your Emmy win when that happens.
And well, all of that, and from everything that you're doing, because as I mentioned to you before, the positivity, everything else, you're going to be doing this for a long time, and I can't wait to see what's coming next, because you keep giving us hit after hit. So when you do the next one, please come back. Thank you for joining us here today.
You guys are very kind, and all the best to you. And I look forward to watching you both and your tremendous careers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nestor. What stinks? When you're stuck in a loop of rent payments, you're just watching your money vanish into thin air. It's the worst. It's time to turn the rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. How do you do that? That is where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as the first rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Doesn't matter, even if you're rocking the old school rent check vibes, Built Rewards, it's got your back. They're going to mail the check for you. It's like basically having a personal rent paying assistant. It's the best. Every month, you pay your rent and you watch the points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or a hotel stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/bigthing. That is joinbilt.com/bigthing. So use our URL so they know that we sent you. That's joinbuilt.com/bigthing. Start earning points with your rent payments today. And I got to tell you about AG1. You guys know AG1. I mean, if you've been listening to this show long enough, you know that I love AG1. And people keep asking me. They notice. John even said when I started, new look, 20 pounds I lost. One of those reasons, AG1 became part of my routine. Because for a long time, I wasn't paying attention to what was going on in my body. It just wasn't. For me, I read labels. I verify that everything is up to the quality I need. And that is why I've stayed with AG1 for as long as I have. It is a research-backed foundational nutrition supplement, and it delivers daily nutrients, gut health support, and is backed by multiple research studies, so you can trust what you're putting into your body. Because I like coffee. I used to drink so much coffee to keep up, but I don't need it anymore, not as much, because after drinking AG1, I have realized that I have all this energy and I need less coffee to power my day. And it turns out I'm not alone. Because in a research study, 91% of people noticed they needed less coffee after 60 days of drinking AG1. 97% of people in a research study felt more energy after 30 days of drinking AG1. That's crazy. 91% of participants noticed that they need less coffee after 60 days of drinking AG1. That's me. Energy is a majorly important reason why it comes to I need so much energy for parenting. I can tell you that right now. AG1 contains ingredients to sustain energy so you can be the best version of yourself within each day. And it really has worked for me, and it's helped me on the plane, everything. It's easy, it's satisfying to start your journey with AG1. If you go to AG1 and you can get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase, you got to go to drinkag1.com/bigthing. drinkag1.com/bigthing. It's the one product I trust to support my whole body health. It's AG1. Roxy, how wonderful was that?
He's so cool.
You said it, and I'm glad that you did in the interview, by the way, where you're like, and you called him out in a nice way and said, hey, you did, it was so nice of you to you were asking questions about us. That was very nice. And not only did he ask questions, he did research too.
I know. He was like, I was looking into you guys, and I was like, it is so wild that he does that. he's just clearly, because Kristian, if I have a strength, it's research. Like, I love to know people.
Yep.
I love people. I love to do my research and learn about people. So when I'm talking to somebody who mirrors me, it's so interesting. I'm just like, whoa. So you know me, you care, you spent time on this. It's
Right.
it's a cool effing feeling. And he does it everywhere he is. It's why he's probably just not the only reason, but it's why people like him. He's such a massive star. Like,
well, he's genuine, and you can
Yeah.
tell, and he brings that out in his performances. He brings it out in conversation. It was a pleasure to talk to him. It went by super fast. Could have probably talked to him for another hour because we barely scratched the surface of his career. But we got a chance to talk about Shogun, obviously, which is what we wanted to talk about. We talked about The Dark Knight, which is obviously what I wanted to talk about. You talked about The Morning Show. We talked about Lost, which I think everybody wanted us to ask him about. So it was.
They even mentioned Psych. Like, that was cool. He's worked on so many amazing things it was one of the, not that I don't feel like with a lot of people we could talk for longer, but it was one of the only times when I look at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, we're at 55 minutes. And I genuinely think that we could have had him for 3 hours and not run out of things to talk about because
easily.
He's just done so much stuff and his answers are he understands what we're doing. Like, it's even if I would ask a question and he was like, I can't really give you what you're asking for, but I'm going to give you something that the people are going to like.
Yeah.
And it was like, you get this, you get how to give people information about what you're doing that's really cool for them.
Yeah, because it's beneficial to him. We put a clip out on the channel and people click on it and to look at, oh, what is he talking about with Lost? It's like, oh, he's nominated. Oh, Shogun. Well, I'm going to go check that out and watch it on FX. And it's like this, he's smart. And it's it was a really fun conversation. I'm glad we did it. So I'd love to hear your comments, man. Put your comments in there about Nestor. What'd you think of the interview? As we continue on with the supersized episode of The Big Thing, we're going to close out with this. Roxy, one of the things he was impressed with, and what we're all impressed with, is how much freaking TV you watch. I
think he was scared. I think he was afraid. Maybe. He was like, you 120, holy.
Yeah, maybe. So there's stuff that you're watching. Tell me, what's the first thing?
Bachelorette, man. Oh, gosh. Broke my heart this week because somebody left. And it wasn't even who Jen was into, but then she had a whole spiral session. Like, am I not good enough for anybody? And I was like, girl, no. Come on. You weren't even that into him. Like, we got to put on our big girl pants right now. And she did. I really like this season. I really like a couple of guys on the show. Some of them are so fratty and douchey are going to be perfect on Paradise. So I'm looking forward to that also. Yeah. But I used to think that she wasn't going to be that entertaining because she's just so genuine and sweet. And I think the entertaining part is that you want her to find her person. That's the part that is entertaining, that you like her. So it's a good season.
All right. So then moving on from Bachelorette, which is still, that show's going to be on until we're long dead.
So I told you I'd been slowly watching Slow Horses because of the Emmys. And I was like, all right, this show's nominated for a ton. I got to watch. Watch season 1. Okay. I watched season 2. Okay. I was like, it's a little slow, but then the finale, the final 2 minutes of every episode have a big thing. Literally the big thing. Season 3, I have 1 episode left. Season 3 is so effing good.
Really?
I don't know if everybody feels this way because I'm not watching with the people, but I was not blown away by 1 and 2.
How many seasons?
This is the one that's nominated. Okay. Season 3 is the most recent season, and it's coming back, I think, in a month or 2 or something for 4. Season 3 is so good. The cast is just now dialed in. I understand the tone. The pacing isn't bothering me anymore because I care so much about the characters that even when it's slow, I'm living with them.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe that's why this show is getting nominations now. Maybe everybody felt that way about season 3. But I've just been sitting here like, what are you guys all talking about?
I guess because you care. 3. Maybe they roped you in because you care so much because you watch season 1 and 2. You care so much about 3. Yeah.
Possibly. I don't think it's a ringing endorsement for a show where it's like, just get through the first 2 seasons.
But I haven't heard that, though. From everybody else that I've heard is that they love this all 3 seasons. Like my friend David Gambino swears by this show.
Yeah, everyone I talked to too. My manager who you met, he's like, what are you talking about? Slow Horses is the best. Season 3, I am finally like, this show is really good.
I've been wanting to watch
Shogun,
it,
but it's good.
I've been wanting to watch it, and so maybe I will. Did I tell you what I did? What you did? I watched 3 seasons of The Umbrella Academy in but basically about a week.
How are you feeling?
I really like the show a lot.
Good.
Yeah, my interview with David Castaneda actually drops tomorrow in Capes and Cows. We're going to put it in Capes and Cows about the upcoming 4th season. I've been blessed, man. We were getting some good people. But I don't just mean like people that it's like, oh, well, what a good guest that is. I mean, I like talking to these people.
Yeah, that is always better when they're cool.
100%.
Nice.
All right, next one.
You haven't seen the House of the Dragon finale?
I have not.
Oh, Kristian.
Yeah, I know.
Like, what am I supposed to do with you?
Did I just tell you that I watched 3 seasons of The Umbrella Academy?
I can't even look at you right now.
Did I just tell you that I watched 3 seasons of The Umbrella? Did I just tell you that I watched 3 seasons of The Umbrella Academy in a week?
So a lot of people were disappointed in this finale.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
The penultimate episode was stellar. The finale is a little more lackluster.
Okay.
But still really good. And I love the politics of this show. So we're wheeling and dealing and setting up for season 4. I think people are just exhausted right now of the Boys' entire season setting up for next season, the Bear entire season setting up for next season, and now House of the Dragon finale setting up for next season. I think people want payoff, and those 3 shows coming back to back to back, having those nerdy audiences where all of them were really more set up. I think people were just like, screw you, House of the Dragon. Yeah. But I loved it, so I'm not with the people.
Okay, fair enough. I'll let you know when I see it. Next one is...
Too Hot to Handle had its finale. Listen, I can't believe I did some research afterwards. Kristian, do you care if I spoil this one for you?
Oh, I care so much. I don't care.
Yes. So the 2 couples that were left, they're still together. And this show wrapped 7 months ago. Oh. That's the most success that this show has ever had. Listen, one girl won $25,000 just for keeping it in her pants. That's a lot of money to keep it in your pants.
For real.
Nobody gives me money for keeping it in my pants.
You'd be a millionaire.
And I've really kept it in my pants. I should be a millionaire.
Yeah.
And then the couple that won, I thought they were really cute together. So yeah, I'm into this show. It doesn't make any sense that these people, every time they make out with each other, they lose $6,000. What is wrong with you guys?
Stupid assholes,
but it's fun to watch.
Of course. All right. Finishing it up.
I watched the pilot of My Lady Jane. I did this little watch along for the World Girls, and I forgot to tell you about it.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. I'm going to binge it this week. So I'm telling you guys now so that in case you want to watch with me so I can talk about it next week. But I thought it was really good. It kind of is giving the great vibes. It's like an alternate twist on history. So this Lady Jane girl in real history, she was beheaded. And this show is like, but what if she wasn't?
Oh, okay.
And she's a little rebel girl. So she's fun to watch, but it's a little more mystical than that. There are creatures and stuff. And I like the pilot. So I'm going to watch the show.
Well, there you go. That's a good thing to go into this weekend for all the TV picks. Roxy, this was a supersized episode. And we got... Yeah. We got your Shogun peeps. We got your little... See, you thought Shogun was completely out of your life. It isn't.
I didn't think that. I knew Shogun wasn't going to be... Kristian, I wanted to say this to him and I didn't. I feel like I'm owed a massive thank you from FX and everybody over at Shogun because I don't shut the fuck up about the show.
Yeah, you're the only person because of you.
I know I'm not the only person, but I really feel like I was on board so early.
Yes,
and I didn't shut up. And I called everybody. Yeah. You got to watch the show.
It was you and Roka, the two that kept talking about it.
I wouldn't
and
shut up.
Steph too.
Steph too.
Steph was very mad at me that I didn't watch it for so long.
Yeah, Steph was like on top of this, and she's not usually the TV girl. No. So I called everyone. I mean, my siblings, my grandparents, I made everyone watch the show. Yeah. I love the show. So basically, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
You know?
Well, thank you, Roxy. Well, thank you guys for watching the show. We really appreciate it. Love to hear your thoughts. If you want to see some of the clip outs from not only this interview that we had with Nestor, we're also going to be we have clip outs from all the interviews that we did on the new Kristian Harloff Clips channel that you can just go. It's in the description. Make sure that you click on those links to our sponsors. You saw our wonderful sponsors here today. Please click on those links. Like I said, browse around. You get something? Wonderful. But browsing around helps us too. So make sure you check it out, please. Roxy, where can they find you?
Everywhere at Roxy Stryer.
Simple, to the point. All right. Thanks for joining us here today. Again, thank you to Nestor. Thank you to you guys. We'll see you on the flip side, everybody. See you back tomorrow for Capes and Cows. And our special interview on that supersized show will be David Castaneda from the Umbrella Academy talking about season 4 and it's going to be a good one. So check it out. All right. Thank you to Roxy. Here we go. Bye. See ya. Where's this legal? I think I got it. Oh, yeah, I found it. Here it is.